Tuesday, July 21st, 2026. Hello, I am John Michael Chambers, and welcome to this special broadcast with Will Barney. I shall first provide some dialogue here in my monologue to set the tone, if you will, that brings us into the mindset of where we'll be heading in this broadcast. The entire rest of the show will be dedicated to hearing from Will Barney on the subject matter at hand. Let's begin. Sovereignty Decree. The structural implementation of Nasara, the executive restitution of the human family, and the financial termination of debt slavery. Consider that the title. Let's begin. The administrative rollout of the asset-backed quantum financial system, QFS, systematic liquidation of unlawful credit, mortgage, and tax liabilities, and the deployment of blocked humanitarian resources, Allied Enforcement Protocol. Now we will break this down. Number one, the collapse of the fiat printing and the awakening under the genuine land law. There comes a moment when the people no longer need vague words. I'm sure that you relate to that. They need clarity. They need to understand what is being prepared in the shadows, if you will. They need to understand why it matters and what this process is truly connected to. So, I want to speak clearly about Nasara today and why this public international law template establishes the absolute foundation for the future of the human family. Nasara represents no civilian statutory reform attempt, but a fundamental financial and humanitarian systemic transformation. It is directly connected to the restoration of the people's sovereignty, to comprehensive debt relief, to unconstrained liquidity, to asset-backed value, to absolute protection, and to the release of resources that have been held back far too long by the corrupt proxy shells of the deep state. For many years, the people have lived under an unbearable engineered pressure, debt pressure, financial pressure, system pressure, constant uncertainty, deliberate delays, and administrative restrictions. It was a constant feeling in daily routine that no matter how hard they work, the legacy system keeps them trapped. Nasara is of such monumental importance because it represents the irreversible road away from that old weight managed via the insolvent U.S. corporation of 1871 and its continental administrative proxies. It represents the material establishment of a cleansed financial architecture, a structure where the people possess unconstrained access, maximum protection, true liquidity, and absolute independence under genuine land law. Number two, the executive mechanics of asset restitution and the elimination of the debt matrix. Let's discuss this. The administrative enforcement of this unprecedented wealth model executes inside the engine room of the Allied Defense Forces over the unhackable tracks of the new global network. The activation of universal high income that you have heard Elon Musk also all too often speak about. This process is not only about money. It is about people finally being able to breathe again, about families being lifted from paralyzing existential pressure, and about human dignity experiencing its complete restoration. Inside the shadows of the G7 foreclosure, the asset-backed QFS quantum financial system mirrors unlawfully stripped assets and taxes back onto the new sovereign accounts of living individuals as a lawful restitution of assets based on historical banking logs. You might want to rewind that to use the old expression. Prosperity is thus no longer reserved for a small criminal elite, but open now for we the people of the world. The seamless liquidation of unlawful debt registries. Many people want to know what Nasara can bring to their daily lives. Well, it brings immediate financial relief through the complete expiration of all credit card, mortgage, and banking liabilities generated via the fraudulent fiat fractional reserve banking matrix. Since these sums rested upon mere book fiction and interest manipulation managed via the deep state, the QFS instantly strips these contracts of any legal baseline under the Uniform Commercial Code, UCC. The old world of engineered scarcity evaporates with the brightest spotlight of truth. Liquidating institutional blockades under the UCMJ. This is a process of this world, Historical magnitude does not move without severe resistance. There have been delays, deliberate blocks, bureaucratic obstacles, and dark forces of the deep state trying to slow the process because they wanted to prevent the true financial freedom of nations under all circumstances. The Department of Defense Law of War Manual, Chapter 11, by the way, available at jmcbroadcasting.com, the entire war manual under Resource Guide. You can access it, you can download it, you can read it. The Department of Defense Law of War Manual in Chapter 11 governs this sabotage under national emergency conditions with surgical coldness. Operating beneath the Title 10 USC JAG and allied cyber detachments have mapped and isolated these hidden hands in the background. Some of the most critical executive moves happen in absolute silence behind the scenes before the world witnesses their physical manifestation in everyday life. Number 3, the logistical safety net of Allied liberation. The Sargasara is far more than a financial reset. It is a deeply human process of healing. Will Barney, Rob Cunningham has discussed this in our weekly Global Financial Reset show for the last year. It is about returning hope to people who have waited far too long, about helping families who have carried too heavy a burden, and about releasing pressure from the hearts that have been tired for many, many, many years. The coordinated rollout of this structure is the exclusive reason why the Allied Supreme Command secures the 3-year transformation corridor leading toward the official conclusion of the term on January 20th, 2029, under the condition locked in. The deployment of Allied task forces guarantees that the release of humanitarian resources, the decentralized implementation of the over 5,000 foreclosed patents, and public access to resonance healing technologies, also known as medbeds, execute flawlessly with zero disruption to foundational civilian utilities. When the EBS, the Emergency Broadcast System, permanently silences civilian media frequencies, music is about to stop, the global population will be presented with the complete liberation from material existence slavery. The nations return protected, self-sustaining, and in absolute sovereignty to genuine land law. For a world without true freedom is not complete. A financial system without unhackable protection is not safe. A future without liquidity is not fair. And a process without absolute transparency cannot truly serve the people. The clockwork of Allied reconstruction executes this transition upon a mathematically optionless baseline. All right, thank you, Guardian Daniel R., for that very important point and reveal. You now know what's going on. All right, Will Barney brings over 19 years of experience in the banking sector where he has developed a strong specialization in structuring funding for commercial projects on a global scale. You can learn more about Will by visiting jmcbroadcasting.com. Click on contributors page, and you'll see his biography, his photo, and a link to his website, which is www.enochgs.com. Welcome back to our special broadcast today, Mr. Will Barney.
Hi, John. So good to be with you again. A pleasure as always.
Thank you, Will. Thank you for being here. We have a lot to unpack, and time is short. So let's get into this right out of the gate. Before we proceed, any comments or feedback concerning the monologue that I just walked the public through?
It's actually spot on. If you look at the current financial system that we've been entrenched in over the last 100 plus years, it's a system of debt, and the creation of money is always about a creation of debt. The problem is when we divorced ourselves from assets, which was done in 1971, this created this opportunity where they could create promises to pay as assets in the system, which is really interesting. And that's how they did all the credit cards. So when you signed a credit card application, you signed a promise to pay. They then gave you that credit line. They didn't have to have money for. The bank didn't have to put up money for the amount that they gave you on that credit card. They simply got you to sign a promise to pay. They can deposit that as an asset, and it balanced their books. So they had nothing in the game, and that's why, as Daniel talked about there, about the elimination of debt, or the Jubilee, as we've called it, affectionately, for some years now, is going to come into play. Because when you take the current system and you move it into the blockchain transparent house that it would be in that house, you have to have assets behind each of the transactions. If the government is borrowing $1 trillion from the Federal Reserve, and the Federal Reserve doesn't have assets that represent that $1 trillion, is the United States responsible to pay back something that was never there in the first place?
Boom.
The answer is no. It's
Correct.
fraud. It's fraud to assume that the person borrowing the money would give value to that when there was no value behind it whatsoever. And in a blockchain system, the ledger shows you there's no asset behind it. When you bring it into the light of day, the whole thing begins to evaporate, and the only remedy then becomes to zero these counts out used with fake money. So,
which will be done.
It's going to be a very interesting phenomenon.
Yeah. Sorry. I overspoke there. It'll be done in a millisecond with the QFS in one fell swoop at the appropriate time. And you've done a great job, once again, Will, of explaining that in simple, common terms that we could understand. And this should be music to everyone's ears. Again, I realize what we've all been through and what we're going through, but it is coming to an end. Talk with us, Will, if you will, please, about M, like Michael, M-Bridge. What is that all about? It's a term that's coming up a lot in our space, and perhaps some of our viewers need some clarification on this. It's kind of important for them to know and how it fits into things. M-Bridge.
M-Bridge has a lot of implications, and primarily what you're looking at is we have a current financial system that is fraudulent, is full of problems, and there has to be some means of how we go from here into something new. You have to have a bridge, or you have catastrophic meltdown. And catastrophic meltdown is not acceptable to anyone, right? So there has to be a way of transitioning from where we are to where we're going. And that's why when you see things like somebody reached out to me the other day, and they were very upset that, and you'll probably have a video about this, but they're very upset that the new currency that's being introduced this fall, as Treasury Secretary Besson says, that's going to have President Trump's signature on it, still says Federal Reserve on it. And I said, well, why are you worried about that? Why does that concern you? The president doesn't put his signature on anything that doesn't represent what he's about. And the bridge is about how we go from where we are to where we're going without a complete and utter collapse and meltdown of the entire system. And you will be so grateful as we get on the other side of this, that the foresight was put together to allow this transition to be done in a way that didn't absolutely decimate every one of you in terms of assets.
Well, thanks, Will. And to our audience, you should be glued for the next 6 minutes to this clip that Will and I chatted about briefly in the digital green room before we launched. He and I were both glued to it. You will be too, and we'll have Will provide his brilliant analysis and commentary. To my producer, run this clip.
Tonight, we're taking you somewhere the cameras usually don't go. The Treasury Department's secret vault. And we found something that's never been seen before. Beautiful room.
Yep, and here is the Treasurer's vault from 1863. And, you know, Jesse, I can't let you pass the gate.
No?
Too much money in there, Jesse.
Okay.
Too much.
All right, you don't trust me.
Well, it's not you. It's not you.
I've heard that before.
Yeah, exactly.
And so what used to be in this vault, or what's in this vault now?
Well, I can't tell you what's in there now, but Americans used to come and cash their checks here.
That's where they came here?
Yeah, or banks could present and get greenbacks. Solomon Chase, who was the treasurer or Treasury Secretary during the Civil War, created the greenback. States used to have their own money, banks used to issue their own money, and he consolidated it into the greenback so people could swap for greenbacks here.
Were there silver coins? Were there gold coins? Were there certificates?
All of the above.
Okay.
And we still have all those, but now most people use currency.
I hear there might be a new brand of currency around the corner.
Well, it's same currency, just different series.
And it's going to look different.
Well, it's gonna have one big change on it. For the 250th, the president's signature is going to be on it for the first time. So I think it's fitting. Donald Trump is president during our 250th anniversary, so it'll be the president's signature and my signature on it.
Let's go take a look.
Let's go take a look.
Dollar bills.
Jesse, welcome to the Treasurer's office. It's when we have 3 museum offices in Treasury, and this is one of them.
This is a beautiful office with a great view of the new big, beautiful ballroom.
It's big and it's beautiful.
It's almost finished.
It's going fast, going fast.
Donald Trump's signature will be on a $100 bill.
Well, it's going to be on all the currency for the 250th.
Everything.
Yes. So that as Treasury Secretary, I only have 2 mandates. The currency has to say "In God We Trust" somewhere on it, and there cannot be a image of a living person, but we have the president's signature, which again, I think it is appropriate for the 250th. During the 150th, there was a Calvin Coolidge coin, so we can put living people's images on a coin. The president's also going to have a coin coming out with his image on it. We could put your image on it.
Let's not get carried away.
Well, people might hoard. People might hoard it. So
my family, and that's it. Can I see the president's signature?
Yeah. So here's the sheets of hundreds, hot off the presses. Watch out! Don't smudge it. don't smudge it. So what'll happen? They're printed here in D.C. or Dallas. Then they go to the Federal Reserve, and the serial numbers are all registered at the Fed, and then the Fed starts sending them out into the banking system. So this fall, that these with the president's signature will be available.
When liberals see the signature, are they going to light it on fire?
Well, yeah, that's good for the U.S. government when they do it. So, their hair's on fire, so they should keep the currency away from their hair.
I see the president's signature is probably the smallest he's ever written anything.
Well, you have to do your signature in a box, and there's trouble keeping it inside the lines.
Okay. Did he use a Sharpie?
He used a miniature Sharpie.
A mini Sharpie.
A mini Sharpie.
Got it. And this doesn't cost any more money to the taxpayers to put his signature on?
Absolutely not. Absolutely. We rotate the currency always, so nothing extra to the taxpayer. And there's something called seigniorage. So we put out currency, and people take it. We take in cash, and then we collect interest on the cash. So the more cash that people in the U.S. or around the world are willing to hold, then better it is for our budget. And I think people are going to want to hold the president's signature.
I am, for sure. Do you carry around a lot of cash? I mean, now, in your personal life.
I don't have a lot of cash anymore. I'm a public servant.
Poor Scott Bessent. You've seen the rise of communism. They say that they could make things more affordable. You think that's possible?
Well, they make it more affordable by making people worse off. And look, things are very cheap in Cuba. Things are very cheap in Venezuela because nobody has any money. I think the money supply in Venezuela that went down 90-something%. So you can level things off and make everyone destitute, which is, this is like a Bolshevik revolution again.
The president said, I could be the best communist. I could promise everything for free, free rent, free food.
Yep. And the shelves will be empty. Like I remember I went to Russia right after the wall came down and the Soviet Union fell apart, and it was just destitution, nothing there. So there's a choice, and I think the American people, there's a small vocal group, and I think the American people are going to push back.
Mr. Secretary, thank you so much. Everyone's very excited about the new bills with the president's signature on it. Could I take a sheet home?
You can write a check. You can write.
Be sure to like it.
Write a check. Boy, the times they are a-changing, as one folk artist said in the early 1960s. Will, why don't you unpack a bit of that for us?
There's a lot in that segment, and it kind of went by quick. But I want to point out a couple of the real basic things. First off, for 100 plus years, we've been using Federal Reserve currency. This is a private bank. They print their own currency. They loan it to us, and they have to be paid back in their own currency. What are you seeing here, though? What you're seeing here is the Treasury printing the money, then setting it to the Federal Reserve for distribution. This hasn't been done since Abraham Lincoln. This is the bridge. What you're watching here is something, a complete about face. Government's going to print the money. Then it's going to let the Federal Reserve distribute it. This is we talked about the M bridge earlier. This is the bridge that gets us through to the other side of this. And it's really fascinating because before Abraham Lincoln had launched the greenback during his term, he was looking for solutions. And the biggest problem they had was, of course, the Civil War was upon them, right? So you had the South had plenty of money. They were being funded by the Jesuits. They had all they wanted. So he then had to go to the bankers to try to find money to fight the war against the South. In every bank, JP Morgan, all of these different banks, they were all said, oh, we'll loan you the money at 30% per annum. It's like worse than credit cards. It's ridiculous, right? He's like, country can't pay for that. And then when he went to 3 or 4 banks and they all said the same identical thing, then he knew they were all in on it, right? So he's like, okay, we have to find an alternative. The alternative was in the Constitution itself. As he was sitting with his Bible one night, and he gets this thought, maybe I need to read the Constitution again. And he goes and he pulls it out and see if there's any ideas there for me to this problem. And he finds the part in there where it says the right to print money lies with Congress. Okay. And he's like, wait, it's right in the Constitution. We just have to print our own money. He goes to Congress, convinces everybody to do so, and they print 480 million or so of greenbacks. This allowed them to fight the war all the way up until the last, say, 90 days or so. of which they ran out. And when he wanted to do a second printing, he no longer had support of Congress to do so. Why? Because the bankers sent lobbyists to every single person in Congress to convince them if they continued on this path, it would be the utter decimation of the country. And yet it was the opposite. They were fighting a war with no debt. None. They were using the assets of the government. Now, this is interesting because if we fast forward, greenbacks were in circulation all the way up to 1980s. So well over 100 years. And they still had some value. They're still being kind of traded. It was kind of more antiquities type of a trade, but it was still being done all the way up to the 1980s. So now what we're watching here, this is a fascinating video that you've just played, John, because as we watch this video, what we're seeing here is the Treasury is printing the money again. And then they're going to give it to the Fed for distribution. This is completely opposite of what we've been living through. And I'll bet you nobody noticed that. Nobody really figured that out. This is why Donald Trump's signature is on these particular printing, because this is a different printing than the Federal Reserve notes directly. And so very fascinating as we watch this play out. As we get to the end of this cycle, it's a likelihood that we'll come up with new money again, perhaps even more colorful in nature.
Well, thank you. Again, the times they are changing, and on that subject, we're going to change topics. Thank you, Will, for breaking that down. We're now going to take a look at, well, I'll call this will make sense in a moment, folks. I'll call this from a nothing burger to a 500-gram Wagyu steak. Let's run the clip.
So if we're all in agreement that it is incorrect to say the 2020 election was stolen, what about the 2016 election?
Look, I'm not going to go back into history.
It was a stolen election.
It was stolen.
Stolen. He's an illegitimate president. He's an illegitimate president. You know, pretending to be president.
Why do you think the president is going to such great lengths to essentially prove that he beat you?
Because he didn't.
1/3 of Clinton supporters say Trump election is not legitimate.
I think he's an illegitimate president that didn't really win.
You are absolutely right.
You can run the best campaign. You can even become the nominee. And you can have the election stolen from you.
The 2016 election was stolen. Got a nicer way to say that?
Say Russia hacked the election.
Russia hacked our election.
Russia hacked our elections.
A little louder, please.
Russia hacked our election. That was a 9/11 scale event.
This was a kind of cyber 9/11. American institutions. Yes.
Russia hacked our election.
Russia, of course, hacked our election here.
Half of Clinton's voters believe the conspiracy theory that Russia hacked election day votes.
We know that they were into voting rolls. Actual interference with the elections themselves. We know it happened.
Despite no credible evidence, 67% of Democrats believe Russia tampered with vote tallies.
Hacking the U.S. election.
Hacking the U.S. election.
Russia hacked our election. The Russians hacked our election.
Russia hacked our election.
Russia hacked our election.
Russian hacking of our election.
Hacking of our election.
Russia hacked our elections.
Russia hacked our elections.
Stolen election.
Russia hacked our election.
Russia hacked our election.
The universal assessment that Russia hacked our election in 2016.
Foreign governments hacked our elections.
Most young Americans consider Donald Trump an illegitimate president.
He's an illegitimate president.
Why is he illegitimate? He just won an election.
He's an illegitimate president in my mind. That's it.
I absolutely agree.
Experts urge Clinton camp to challenge election results.
We will see how illegitimate his victory actually was. He's an illegitimate president.
Russia hacked our election.
Russians hacking our election.
Hacked our election.
Russia hacking our election.
I don't see the president-elect as a legitimate president.
Trump is an illegitimate president who stole the election.
He is not a president.
He's illegitimate, and my biggest fear is that he's going to do it again with the help of Vlad, his best pal. It's terrifying.
Would you be my vice presidential candidate?
Hillary Clinton voters called to overturn election results.
More than 4 million people have already signed a petition on change.org calling for the electors of the Electoral College to, quote, ignore their states'
votes and cast their ballots for Secretary Clinton.
Trump didn't actually win the election in 2016.
We are the victims of a bloodless coup.
He didn't win the general election.
Yo, Electoral College, make Hillary Clinton president, period.
Donald Trump is an illegitimate president.
Illegitimate president.
Dems don't accept Trump as a legitimate president.
This wasn't on the level.
This election was not on the level.
I don't think he's a legitimate president.
Our election wasn't legit.
He got his victory from cheating.
Yes, Trump cheated.
Trump cheated the 2016 election.
He's an illegitimate president.
No validity, no credibility.
And because of that,
Anger at what some see as an illegitimate president.
It will not be a peaceful change of
A
power.
number of incidents turned violent. Protesters hurled trash cans, flash bombs, and objects at police.
Several officers injured.
Protesters threw rocks and smashed windows, leading to more confrontations, injuries, and arrests.
The chaotic scene just blocks outside the secure area of the inauguration.
If denying election results is extreme now,
Yeah.
why was
So
it then?
let's be really clear. That comparison that you made is just ridiculous.
protests against Donald Trump's election victory surged overnight.
Know them by their fruits. Quick comment from you, Will, and then I'm going to move into President Trump's recent speech.
Well, this is hypocrisy on complete and utter display here, isn't it? They claimed the 2016 election was stolen from them. Really what happened was their hacking of their own election in 2016 was somewhat debilitated. Thank you, military. They didn't prevent all of the hacking that was going on, but they stopped enough of it that Donald Trump's legitimate votes outnumbered Hillary Clinton's even fake votes. And yet, even though they had control of the media where they could whine and they could complain and go on about this, it didn't change anything. And now we have, of course, Donald Trump introducing evidence over the last few days about what occurred in 2020. And it is damning, to say the least, against the Democrat Party. In fact, it's the evidence is so direct as to what they did that there's a possibility by the end of this year there may not even be a Democrat Party remaining. They have a lot to answer for, and I know there are many people that vote blue and think that that's all good, but the reality is a lie repeated is still a lie. Yes. And evidence is now stacking up against them because the truth is always the truth. It never changes. And now we're finding the truth is coming out, and this is going to be very hard to deal with.
Absolutely. So on the subject of President Trump's recent address to the nation, I mentioned a moment ago, from nothing burger to a 500-gram delicious Wagyu steak. A lot of folks, it's a nothing burger speech. Nothing was there. And now I have two comments about that. One, well, of course, it's completely untrue. So one segment of folks that say that just simply have no idea what's going on. The second segment, in my opinion, are folks that do know what's going on. And they were hoping, they've known this for years, like you and I and many of our viewers, and they were hoping for other things. But it is not a nothing burger. Let's have Will break this down bit by bit. We're talking about the official release now, as you just stated, of facts and evidence through the DNI and the United States federal government. And so President Trump is releasing this. He mentioned China and as foreign interference. Quick comment about that before I move us into Barack Hussein Obama.
The evidence is showing that China hacked nearly 220 million voter records from the people in America. This is an incredible number, and it means that most of you, probably that are listening to this broadcast, your information probably was collected as well. They then used social media, TikTok, Facebook, various places like that to then match social media profiles with the individual records, and they were literally profiling everyone as to how they might vote, and then using that to their advantage. So this is what we had happen, and this you're going to see this coming out of Georgia is a good example. Georgia found in Fulton County over 1 million ballots that had no corresponding, they were supposed to be mail-in ballots, yet they had no corresponding envelopes at all for them, and the paper was of a different texture.
How about that?
So we're going to find out that they were scanning these in. They had no folds, no creases, that clearly wasn't mailed, yet they were counting them as mailed ballots by the hundreds of thousands. And that's just one state. This was going on in multiple states.
Yes, and as I understand, I saw a report a week or so ago, I think 220 FBI agents are swarming the area in Fulton County, addressing the issue you just raised. That brings us to Barack Obama. The president did mention the name Barack Obama in that speech. And of course, for many of us, it triggered multiple press conferences over the last year or two where the president said all roads lead to Obama, as well as in social media posts talking about election theft and misuse of FISA and Russiagate, and leading as far as to stating it clearly as treason and reminding us what the punishment for treason is. Your quick comments about the passing of that name during President's speech.
Well, you had Obama saying publicly prior to his departure in 2017, they asked him, well, what would you think a future would look like? What would you do in the future? And he says he would be more than happy to sit in a basement somewhere and control the next presidency, saying this vocally out loud. And then he leaves the presidency as Donald Trump is sworn in January 2017. But he keeps a house in D.C., which was very active, apparently, and very well connected. So there seems to be a lot of indication that he was running the operations from the top to carry out a lot of this voter fraud scenario. You have to remember, we've not yet heard from Nicolas Maduro, even though he's still in custody. We're receiving reports that he's very chatty these days, and he's revealing all for the sake of reducing sentences. So I think when you begin to see evidence from those who exported the technology to do the vote flipping, the vote stealing, and in a lot of jurisdictions, 71 countries plus the United States, this is not a small matter. It is of massive importance. The fact that you had political parties here colluding with known nuclear adversaries across the world on this issue brings up a matter of whether treason is involved. We haven't had a trial or a tribunal, either one, on the case of treason in a very long time, many decades, and probably over 50 years. And when you don't prosecute treason, it tends to keep happening. And for a long time, it was covered up. It was protected by those who were in on it. But now the protections are gone. Now there's nobody protecting. Now the evidence is coming forward to face the light of day. And the evidence will bear this out. The Constitution of the United States is very clear. It's very unambiguous about what is defined as treason. And because it's so clear, it's very easy to determine whether a case meets or doesn't meet this issue. Many are claiming treason was committed if you're colluding with a nuclear enemy, someone on the adversary anyway, on the other side of the world to do this. And we know China was deeply involved. Apparently their printing press is printing the ballots on their paper rather than the American paper that had the correct watermarks on it. And when you start comparing those under a microscope, it's going to become very obvious what is fake and what is authentic.
Thank you, Will. And a couple of quick follow-ups. Tribunals have been quite active over these recent years, which will be revealed to the people at the appropriate moment, officially versus a lot of the unofficial information that floats around out there. So treason is going to become a trending topic on Google at some point in the near future. Let's put it like that. Also, you mentioned something very important. The protections are gone. That is absolutely right. That is a powerful statement of critical importance. The exit ramps are closed. The protections are no longer there. The evidence is being produced. Later we'll have our EBS. And so folks, and then you've got Mike Lindell. So I read a report that Dominion no longer is suing him for $1.3 billion. How about that? And he's running for mayor. He's running for governor of Minnesota, endorsed recently by President Trump to take over the mess that Tampon Tim, the fraudulent nutcase over there, created. Anyway, so yes, folks, the times they are changing. Let me get back on point, Will, to the speech given by the president, the address to the nation, another very, very notable takeaway. Again, not a nothing burger, 200-gram, 500-gram delicious steak. Talk about the media. The media minimally is complicit due to violation of U.S. Section Codes 2384 and 2385, advocating the overthrow of a government for knowingly reporting false information concerning the presidency and the elections, thus aiding and abetting the enemy. The president discussed the media. Oh, and isn't it interesting that ABC, CBS, NBC, I think those are the three, and I think maybe even CNN, I could be corrected on this, wouldn't air it live. And now that is percolating. What say you, Will, about that aspect of this, quote, nothing burger?
Yeah, the president named three such networks, so ABC, NBC, and CNN, all refusing to air it live. He wanted it broadcast live because he didn't want it to be messed with. He wanted the message to be delivered directly as it was stated. These networks then diced up the message, did their spin, if you will, right, on the topic, and then tried to claim that he was making false allegations. That is very strong words coming from those that have perpetuated the fraud that was going on in these various counties and states over the 2020 election. Donald Trump had enough evidence in January of 2021 that potentially he could have stood up a solution to fix this. However, the people weren't ready for that. They simply didn't understand the fraud that had occurred. And so we then had 4 years of a military operation where he stepped down as president, not as commander-in-chief, but we had these actors playing Joe and Kamala carrying this out. And as they did, there's a number of things that happened. Joe was tossed aside in July of 2020, just before the elections, and Kamala's now going to be running as president, and she's going to take a running mate known as Tampon Tim. This was interesting because what did it expose? Nobody knew who Tim Walz was really, unless you were in Minnesota. You didn't have any idea who the guy was. Now everyone knows who he is, just in time for all the fraud of Minnesota to come pouring out. And it will have to be corrected. Fortunately, we'll have, I think Mike Lindell's probably going to win that state and bring in some massive cleanup that needs to be done. So if you look at the strategy implemented here by the Patriots, they tend to take people that play critical roles of fraud and deception and put them out in front where everybody can see and get to know who they are. Maybe in another light, which in this case it was for the election. But nevertheless, now everybody knows who that person is. So when the fraud and deception comes out of what they've committed, Now everybody wants to see their head on the pike, right? And the same thing happened with Tony Fauci during the COVID debacle. On the way out the door, the 2 weeks prior to Tulsi Gabbard leaving, she dropped massive bombs that basically blew up his entire story and held him as complicit not only in COVID, but in the running of gain of function in 120 bioweapons labs across the entire world in 30 different countries. All of this is designed to help people understand the characters that are going to be front and center as we get into what that will be. The information Tulsi dropped before leaving is going to lead to what we affectionately call Nuremberg 2.0. It's basically going to be much like the Nuremberg trials after World War II, where even journalists hung for their part in the deception. Could we see journalists hang as part of this deception? We will wait and see on that. But it happened before. There's precedence for it. It certainly could happen again.
Absolutely. And I've covered that in my daily now resumed war reports, compliments of Guardian Daniel R. To that very point you raised, Will, updates on Nuremberg 2.0, what that's going to look like and when that's going to begin to unfold before the eyes of the public. I want to switch gears, well, stay on track a bit, but move us into elections. SAVE Act doesn't pass. We've touched on this before, but what's your commentary of the options the president has?
I don't think it's going to pass, because I think we need to show everybody how corrupt the entirety of Congress is. Okay. I think we have to show, this is part of the show. Everyone must see, even if you're asleep, you must see how corrupt these people are. And why is that important? It's important because it plays into the election fraud situation. Because if they're not willing to pass the SAVE Act, did they even win their elections in the first place? You see, it calls all this into question, where people begin to ask themselves, wait a minute, how did these people even get into office? How did someone like Mitch McConnell, who we don't even know if he's alive, how did he stay in office for 40 years? I lived in the state of Kentucky, couldn't find anybody. In the years I lived there, couldn't find a soul that could tell me they liked Mitch McConnell. So how does a person like this win for 40 years?
Yeah.
Right? You have to start asking questions. And if we don't ask the questions, we're not going to get to the bottom of this. So I think what we're watching here is we're watching this play out. Let's just pretend for a second it doesn't pass. What does that mean for the president? What does it mean for the country? The president has an opportunity. He already has executive power. That executive power has been recently backed up by the Supreme Court to do what must be done. Insurrection Act could be declared based upon the fraudulent elections alone, that it was an insurrection coup against the country, and he could set everything straight just by executive power. He has the capability. Will he do that? I don't think it's anytime soon. I think what we're going to watch is more of the play, if you will, present itself, more evidence. We're going to be digging through the evidence that was just dropped over the last few days for the next 2 months, 3 months, digging through it, analyzing it, talking about it, regurgitating it. This is going to bring the country to a clear and present view of the absolute crisis we're in, because the country's in a massive crisis. The crisis is this: it's being run by people that weren't elected there. And therefore, it is not representative of the people. So something's got to be done. What do you do when you get to November 5th without taking a look at the fact that the primary elections in the United States, in many of the states, have already been run, and they were using the same fraudulent voting machines that all the evidence is coming out on right now? Even if you could run the most perfect election ever. Let's say the SAVE Act passed and you had no fraud in the November election. You still have candidates on the ballot that don't belong there. Can you have an election? I don't think so. I don't think out of conscience that we could allow that to occur. So I think as this information comes out and we rip through it and we're going to expose it all, we're going to talk about it over the next few months, as by the time we get to October, we may be so disgusted by what we find that we're ready to pause that election. We're ready to say, you know what? There is no civil remedy in our government to fix this, because had there been a remedy, that would have already been done. A good example of this is what occurred a year ago. A year ago, Donald Trump issued an executive order to all the counties of America, 5,000 plus counties, and they were given a directive to clean up their voter rolls. To my knowledge, not one county has fixed their voter rolls a whole year later. And now we're in an election time. So
great
if
analysis.
the civil government
ahead,
can't fix it, if they can't fix it, what is the remedy? And I think ultimately we're going to be faced with the fact that there's only one remedy, and it's going to come from those who swore allegiance to the very Constitution from the military themselves.
Great analysis. And for everyone whose blood is boiling already and will continue to boil as the months progress, as Will just sort of walked us through, as things get unpacked and evolve over the next few months based on the election theft evidence, this should calm you a bit, believe it or not. And I agree with you. The president, through every effort, you mentioned the two key things. One, a directive to all the counties in America to get their voter rolls straightened out. Two, pressing and pressing and pressing to get the Save America Act passed. He has presented to the world and the American people, we're trying to do things the right way within the system we have, but it's broken. And what's going to end up happening more than likely, as you stated, Insurrection Act, declaration of national emergency, or simply, as Juan O'Savin has stated, a pause until we get it right. I will say this, I've said it before and I'll say it again. And if I'm wrong, I'll come and clean up my statement and admit I'm wrong. But we are not going to have another stolen election in this country. And I think you can take that to the bank. All right. So, but we got one hell of a journey ahead of us. And thank goodness we have our Commander-in-Chief and President Donald J. Trump at the helm, helping us restore our constitutional republic and free our nation, and then export our successful actions around the world to the nations that are aboard, let's say the Board of Peace nations, to help the other 71 countries that had their elections stolen, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So let's switch gears as we wind down. We got about 10 minutes left in the special broadcast with Will Barney. Let's talk about the word communism. Here's what I've seen. Loosely dot connecting from a 40,000 foot view. Over the last several months, we've seen and heard that word come up a lot. For example, the July 4th speech, right, or the eve of communism, communism, communism from the president. We hear in the recent address to the nation, China, communism, affecting elections. Marco Rubio gave a recent speech, which was highlighted, by the way, in Bossi Briefs to our viewers, just published Monday this week. You'll want to hear what Ricardo Bossi had to say about this as well. So you've got Rubio on a speech on communism. You got the president talking about it in the recent address to the nation. You've got the president hammering it on July 4th. And I could in the recent clip you and I and our audience just watched with Scott Bessent and Jesse Waters discussing communism. You think it's an accident that all these power players are using that word? No. What do you make of this, Will?
Well, this was one of the primary topics of the ministerial that was held by Marco Rubio. Over 75 nations attended, about political terrorism. So this was held just last week, right prior to Trump's speech. Okay, so we had this ministerial. being held where there, and Marco gave a fantastic speech, by the way, and so did several others. Scott Bessent spoke at that ministerial. Also, Steve Miller, he was fantastic as well. Incredible topics that were covered. And what's interesting is if you look at all of the problem countries around the world, those that are creating the mischief, what we see something in common here, you know, whether it be Cuba, Venezuela, Iran, China, hacking elections. What's the common theme here? They're all running communist regimes. They're all running dictator communist regimes. Why? Because those that, I don't know if the word is employ, but those that pay them to do what they do, which goes back to the City of London and the bankers, they want total domination. They want communism to be worldwide. And so the only way that we fight back against this is that we make it a topic front and center, and we bring attention to the actions of these individuals and their works. Communism never, ever in history has succeeded except for short periods of time. In every case, it has led to such constraint upon the people until the massive revolution breaks out and blows the whole thing sky high. This has been done over and over and over, whether it be the USSR, the Nazi Germany. There's so many examples we have in not even very far distant history that we can look at where we can say it's always failed because it doesn't deliver on this premise. The premise is this: the Constitution is designed to protect the individual. Individual rights, individual sovereignty, individual capability. Why? Because if you protect the one, you've protected everybody. You've protected the collective. This is very different when you look at communism. Communism says the good of the whole is so righteous that it's okay for us to sacrifice a few minions at the bottom in order to achieve it. So what do you do with that? Well, if you can sacrifice a few minions at the bottom, who's all called minions? Who gets labeled and declassified as, oh, you're worthy of expulsion, you're worthy of execution or some other means? Here recently, just in the country of Iran, we had protests break out. And this is prior to the U.S. getting involved there. So go back 6 months. Protests breaking out in Iran against their evil regime who's acting communistic, okay? They mowed down, shot in the street, murdered 52,000 protesters. And we think these are good guys that are going to make a deal? They're going to be good neighbors to the world? They can't even be good neighbors to their own people. Every communist regime has done this. You had millions killed under Stalin, millions killed under Mao in China. It always leads to death and destruction. Because if they don't do this, they can't create enough fear. If you can create enough fear, you can get people to just submit to your regime. This can't happen in a free and open society. It's inappropriate in a free and open society. We all need to have the right to choose our lives. And this is why this battle is coming to a head. Anybody that's for communism. Now, what's interesting about the word communism is that it has other pseudonyms. It has other names it goes by. And I think one of the chief among those here in the United States is a term called democratic socialist. This is their cover term for the communists.
Yes.
And so what's happened in places like New York City, they elect a mayor who is an Islamic Democrat socialist, so an Islamic communist. And they're having all kinds of problems.
They sure
all
are.
kinds of problems there.
Yes.
So good example here in the United States about what that means.
Thank you, Will. We're going to wrap this broadcast up with some announcements. First and foremost, I want our audience to visit unlawful.gs.com and learn about the incredible work that Will and his team has been working on for years and what's to come there. Also, Will, where else can people follow you when you're not on the broadcast here at JMC Broadcasting?
Well, there's a variety of places that that you can go. We're on YouTube. Just type in Enoch Global Services, and we're going to pop up. You can find us on x.com at, I believe it's EnochGS on x.com. And we're also on Rumble, EnochGS there as well, and Rumble as well. So we're putting out, we've been putting out 2 global updates a week, showing the evidences of things that are going on that's leading us to a full reset. I don't know if we're going to get to 2 this week because I have some travel to do later in the week. A family member has passed away, and I've got a funeral to attend. So, but there will be at least one that we'll put out this week. And so we're trying to keep everybody updated on those channels. Go ahead and follow us there. We share a lot of information about what's happening, so you can kind of get a grip of what's happening. 'Cause a lot of people say, well, this is just John and Will's crazy idea. But you know what? The evidence is stark. It's everywhere, and I think it's important that we show it. So that's what we try to do on our global updates each week, and hopefully it's helpful for people to grasp and to realize it's not just an opinion. We all have opinions, of course, but our opinions are shaped by real things. They're shaped by evidences. They're shaped by truth versus lies, and that's what we try to dig through and help people with.
Thank you, Will. I encourage everyone to follow Will in one of those select platforms that Will spoke about. It's very important. And on that note, I'm making a few announcements here to our viewers. The Global Financial Reset Show that Will has been participating in as a contributor every other week, probably for about a year now, it seems, is going monthly. There's a whole host of reasons for that. It'll be a monthly panel beginning August 5th. Will Barney, Bill Armour, and Rob Cunningham will be our staple panel members each and every month, with a 4th revolving guest seat to come join us. So mark your calendars. The next Global Financial Reset with Will, Rob, and Bill, and the 4th guest to be announced, launches August 5th. And like clockwork, it'll be monthly. Second announcement, I don't have the date in front of me, but coming soon, maybe in the next week or so, we are holding another special broadcast such as this, featuring Will Barney, Mel Carmine, and Rob Cunningham. And the focus in that entire special broadcast is the subject of cryptocurrency, sort of from kindergarten through university internship. We're going to go from top to bottom on crypto and everything related to that subject matter. So you'll want to tune into that. Now, people often say, how do I find this? I can't find that. Folks, it's very simple. Go to jmcbroadcasting.com, subscribe for free. You'll be notified. Go to the follow tab on the navigation bar, and there's all the places we distribute our content. YouTube, Rumble, Truth Social, X, Facebook. Pick your favorite platform or platforms. And when you do the combination of these 2 things, you will always be informed of our shows and be notified when they're coming and once they are published. So those are some of my closing comments. And I want to thank you, Will Barney, for taking time out of your schedule, and condolences to you and your family for the loss of a loved one. Stay safe, Will.
Thank you.
And take care of yourself. And that's really a wrap, folks. I'm going to thank you, Will Barney. Sheila Holm is joining me. Thank you, Will. Joining me July 30th in our private Zoom room to answer your questions for 1 solid hour. So Sheila will be on screen. I'll be on screen just as a moderator and host. You will submit your questions. They will be answered live by Sheila Holm. Mark your calendars, July 30th, 8 p.m. Eastern. Now, how do you participate? Go to jmcbroadcasting.com, click on Premium Portal, and see if that's a fit for you. If it is, we certainly look forward to seeing you there. That's really a wrap. My last statement, I have been saying this in my weekly JMC Unplugged. A version of that goes out to our free subscribers, and the full JMC Unplugged goes out to our premium members every Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern, right to your inbox. I've been making the announcement there. I'm making it now on all the shows. please watch the daily war reports. For the next week, they'll be about 20, 25 minutes long. I've combined 3 reports into one. There's a whole reason for all of this, but the bottom line is you've got to listen to these war reports. Thank you, Guardian Daniel R. And you can go to jmcbroadcasting.com, click on contributors, and get linked up with Guardian Daniel R there. And I read these reports daily. We'll continue to do so as long as the reports are authored. I'll be caught up on reports probably in a week and be in real time with Daniel on these reports. They're critically important, explaining to even the most awakened where we were and what happened. All the loose ends are tied together. Where we are today and what's happening, and where we're going to be in the near future and down the line. Very high level. I mean, you want reveals, you want information. It's the JMC Daily War Report, Guardian Daniel R. So please follow them daily. It'll help you enormously. It's helping me, and I'm fairly awake, and I learn at much deeper levels a lot of the pieces that are coming together for me in this PSYOP information operation, this military continuity of government phase we are in, have been in, are in, and will remain in for some time to come. War Reports Daily. Thank you, Will Barney. This has been a special broadcast. I have an important announcement right now about Off-World. We'll see you at the next special broadcast and on our programming at jmcbroadcasting.com. Stay safe, everyone, and may God be with you.
Since President Dwight D. Eisenhower, top secret files were created concerning off-world activity and visits to planet Earth. Undoubtedly, over the decades, these files have grown. Area 51 is commonly known. We've heard and seen images of UFOs, but not until now has this been validated and presented to the American people and to the world as President Donald J. Trump released the first tranche of top-secret files. This is the beginning. There's much more to come. Join John Michael Chambers and guests on a new monthly panel, JMC Broadcast, Off-World with JMC. Premiere episode launches Thursday, June 18th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Subscribe for free by visiting jmcbroadcasting.com and join us on this intriguing and challenging journey together, taking the Great Awakening to new and higher heights. Come travel through the portal with us. Where we go one, we go all.